Hello there, and welcome to Sleepy Tales by John, a place where curiosity is free to wander and where the mind can settle back into its quiet peace. Tonight, we're going to look for an answer together. It isn't a question with a clear solution. It isn't even the kind of question most people want to think about for too long. But it's a question that might make you tilt your head a little and see everything in your life from a different angle. A question simple enough to say out loud, yet complex enough to change the way you feel about almost everything. What if Earth really were a test? Not a metaphor, not a figure of speech. A test designed with intention, observed by someone or something, carrying a purpose far deeper than what we casually call everyday life. Maybe it's the imprint of an ancient intelligence. Maybe it's the handiwork of beings we've never seen, or perhaps, in a twist more mysterious than all of those, it is us, humans from the future, quietly observing the path we once walked. Before going deeper, I want to ask you something. Where are you listening from? A gentle morning, a quiet evening, or a long journey between two worlds? It's strange how, across countless time zones and countless rhythms of life, we find each other in this very moment. Maybe that too is part of the test. Or maybe just a small gift the universe decided to place gently in your hands. Every discovery tonight, whether immense or delicate, will fall softly into place like a puzzle piece in a cosmic story, one so wide and beautiful that it stretches beyond human thought. If you enjoy these slow, drifting journeys, you can like, subscribe, or share your thoughts. Who knows, maybe your whisper will guide another wandering soul to rest here for a while. As we sit together in this quiet space, the question, if Earth is a test, begins to open like a softly glowing door. And the more we look at it, the more we realize that the kind of test we once understood seems far too small to hold what life is quietly teaching us each day. A real test needs no paper, no pen, no watchful examiner standing over our shoulders. It exists in the way we live. It lives in how we respond when no one is watching. Those private moments we think go unseen, but which are actually the clearest expression of who we are becoming. It might be something tiny, picking up a piece of trash that isn't yours, holding the door for a stranger, or simply choosing not to let a small spark of anger grow into a wildfire. None of these things are written into any notebook, yet they settle into the subtle architecture of the person you are. It appears in our patience when life slows down, when things don't unfold the way we planned, when the road ahead feels bumpier than we expected. Some days, the world seems to test us by giving us delays, pauses, heavy clouds, just to see whether we know how to breathe gently and accept that certain things simply take time to bloom. It hides within kindness that grows in the smallest places, like flowers rising from cracks in stone. A soft check-in, a quiet gesture that expects nothing, a look of understanding that needs no explanation. These tiny acts hold the power to ripple outward, touching others, and then circling back to us in unexpected ways. And perhaps the most beautiful, the deepest, is the ability to stay calm when life begins to storm. When the world shakes, when news and fears and losses arrive like sudden weather, the test sometimes becomes, can we hold even a small space of peace for ourselves? Can we look at the chaos without letting it sweep our spirit away? This test never announces itself. It sends no final report. It never warns, you're about to get this wrong. It simply exists, like a river. Each person stands beside that river, sometimes stepping in, sometimes watching from the bank, sometimes letting the current take them farther than expected. No one hands out instructions, but everyone is quietly learning how to cross it, using their own breath, their own choices, the shifting stones life rolls beneath their feet. And strangely, no two rivers look the same. Some people see a mirror-still stream. Others see swirling, rushing water testing the limits of their endurance. Some see only a quiet passageway for reflection. But whether the waters are calm or wild, shallow or deep, they all lead us to the same place, a clearer understanding of ourselves. When we realize this, a soft and almost mysterious feeling begins to rise, like something behind the curtain of the world is watching, not to judge us, but to see how we grow. And perhaps that's the most fascinating part of this test. It isn't trying to find our mistakes. It's watching to see whether we're changing, even just a little. As we sit in this quiet evening together, with breath settling into a slow rhythm, we begin to feel that this test isn't something that pressures us, but something that invites us to live more deeply, more gently, more fully. The biggest lessons are often hidden beneath the simplest things. The greatest turning points sometimes arrive in moments we hardly notice. And the most truthful answers often appear only when we stop searching and let the heart speak. Right here, in this soft pause, we begin to see something clearly. The test of life does not lie in the result. It lies in each small step we place upon the ground. After viewing Earth as a perfect examination room, a meditative garden arranged by invisible hands, from the gentle balance of sunlight to the thin blanket of air wrapped around the planet, we suddenly recognize a quiet truth. If our environment is crafted with such subtle care, then the question it invites us to answer must be equally subtle. Not a written question, not a timed assessment, not something meant to frighten us into perfection, but a kind of question that only appears when the mind is calm enough to hear it. When the small movements of life become clear as moonlight drifting across a still lake. And in that moment, stepping out of the garden we just walked through, we see a door open softly. No sound, just an invitation. If this is a test, then what is the test asking? There are questions life never states aloud. It leaves footprints instead, fading slowly in the sand after the tide retreats. And when we look long enough, we see they all fall into three great groups. Three doors that each of us opens in our own timing. The question of life itself. How do we adapt? Earth changes constantly, like a teacher who speaks little but always brings new challenges. Rain, drought, hardship, unexpected events falling onto our shoulders like nighttime raindrops. This question doesn't ask whether we are strong. It asks whether we can soften with life. The way water takes the shape of whatever cup it rests in while keeping its clear essence. Every time we adapt to a new job, a shifting relationship, or an unexpected turn in our path, we are quietly answering this question without noticing. No one grades us, but each time we rise again, rethink our approach, or allow ourselves to become a more flexible version of who we are, the test smiles. The question of morality, how do we treat one another? Some days we think our test lies in big ambitions, careers, achievements, long-term plans. But then life brings small moments. The sad eyes of a stranger on a train, a careless word that wounds someone, a choice that can help or hurt another person. The moral question is never loud. It has no shape of laws. It simply asks, when no one is looking, what do you choose? Sometimes it means offering a kind word when your mind feels tangled. Sometimes it means stepping back half a pace in an argument. Sometimes it means simply refusing to harm, even with a sentence spoken sharply. In Earth's examination room, morality isn't something to memorize. It's a warm lamp in the night, not bright enough to change the whole sky, but enough to light a small stretch of your path. The question of community, can we hold each other when challenges rise? Alone, a human is as fragile as a candle in the wind. But when many candles move closer, the light grows strong enough to brighten an entire room. This question emerges when the world trembles. Disasters, crises, losses. It asks something no other species can answer for us. Can we become better when we stand together? Not always, but every time communities unite, every time we reach out to someone we don't know, every time humanity chooses compassion in the middle of chaos, that is when Earth's test glows like a tiny flame, burning stubbornly through winter. This question reminds us of something gentle but undeniable. No one passes this test alone. These invisible questions don't push, don't demand, don't assign grades. They simply open small doors inside the imagination. Doors we don't have to walk through right away, only acknowledge that they are there. Just like hearing waves from afar, you don't need to see the sea to know the horizon exists. If Earth truly holds a test, perhaps it is as soft as this. No need to rush toward an answer. No need to search desperately. Just live, observe, feel, and let the question itself become a quiet companion, a small lantern walking beside you through the long night. And right at this point, another door begins to open, curious, deeper, inviting you to sink just a little more into your pillow. After the invisible questions begin to spread through the mind, questions about life, about morality, about community, a different stillness settles over everything, thin as night mist resting atop a roof. When the air first turns cold, it is in that moment when we realize that life's test has no model answer, no visible examiner, that a natural wonder rises, as delicate as a strand of incense smoke floating upward beside a window. If there is a test, then who is observing it? This question doesn't frighten us. It doesn't make us defensive. It simply drifts in, slowly, like the sound of footsteps passing down the hallway of an old house, uncertain whether they are real or imagined under the falling night. And from that crossing point, between curiosity and peace, we begin to step into a new space. In the world of speculation, it is easy to jump to powerful beings, gods, extraterrestrial intelligences, even humanity from a distant future. But here, we don't need any name. No face, no form. The observer, if such a presence exists at all, doesn't have to stand in front of us with eyes that pierce into our thoughts. They may instead appear as a kind of awareness. Not an eye, but a presence so gentle, so quiet, so uninterested in calling attention to itself. Imagine sitting in an old classroom, late afternoon sunlight falling through the window, specks of dust floating inside a golden beam. You write your work, no reminders, no pressure. But at the far end of the room stands an elderly teacher, hands folded behind his back, wearing a peaceful expression. He doesn't grade a single sentence. He doesn't warn you that time is running out. He simply stands there, watching, listening, letting you write yourself into being. That image is the essence of the observer here. Not a strict judge, not a deity of punishment, not a stalker tracking every step. Instead, a presence close enough to give life meaning, but distant enough to allow every choice to remain your own. In this sleepy, drifting atmosphere, the curtain between us and the observer doesn't need to lift. We don't need to know what realm they belong to or which layer of reality they inhabit. Sometimes, the importance lies not in who the observer is, but in the subtlety of how they observe. If someone is watching us, they choose silence. If someone places challenges in our path, they choose to place them at the exact moment we can face them. If someone wishes to understand the true nature of humans, they know silence reveals more than any supervision ever could. Seen this way, the observer is like the wind. We cannot see them, we cannot hold them, but we feel the way they move across the surface of our lives. Some days, the wind is strong, carrying challenges we must brace against. Some days, it is soft, a hand resting gently on our shoulder, reminding us we are not alone. The observer, if they exist, does not want to shape us. They want to see how we shape ourselves. Some will call this God, some will call it the universe. Some will say it is a simulation created by an advanced civilization. Some will believe it is our future selves, watching their ancestors to understand where they came from. But here, in this story, we don't need to choose one answer. All these possibilities may sit together like fallen leaves around a tree trunk. None more important than the others. What remains, the only feeling that matters, is this. If someone is watching, they are doing so with absolute patience and gentleness. And there is another possibility, one many people hesitate to voice. Perhaps the observer is us, but in another form, another time, another layer of consciousness. Just like looking into a mirror, sometimes the reflection doesn't feel like the you of today. It feels like someone older, deeper, wiser. That possibility isn't frightening, it is soft, reminding us that the observer we seek outside might have lived within us all along. But no matter who the observer is, one truth stays steady. Their silence is trust. Trust that we can walk through this life, test our own way. Trust that we can make mistakes and still grow. Trust that both our light and our shadows have value. Because together, they map the landscape of a human soul. And as we look into this silent presence, another chapter begins to open. A chapter shaped by an ancient whisper. If civilizations long before us sensed Earth as a test, what did they see that we have not yet perceived? And as the idea of a silent gaze lingers around us like incense fading in the air, the mind drifts backward so far that time becomes pale like a breath on a cold window. For if the question "who is watching us" makes us pause, another question rises from even deeper shadows. Are we the first to ask this? Or has someone before us, deep in the dark of forgotten millennia, whispered the same wonder into the night? And, like a memory stirring naturally, Part 8 opens, soft, like a hand brushing dust from an old curtain. When we look into the past, not with the eyes of historians, but with the heart of a storyteller, we begin to see strange traces, like sparks left behind by souls who lived thousands of years before us. They had no telescopes, no modern science, but they possessed something sharper. Intuition. The intuition of early humans. Simple, but astonishingly deep. Imagine a night, far, far away, where the ground smells of wild grass and the sky has never known the stain of artificial light. A whole tribe gathers around a fire. The fire glows like the earth's own heartbeat, its crackling steady like the breathing of the forest. Light dances across their faces like tiny spirits moving. They look up at the star-filled sky, so deep it feels possible to fall into it if you close your eyes too long. In this moment, you can imagine them asking, with a simple but sincere language, "Who placed us here? And what is expected of us?" No one wrote this question down, but it lived on. In their art, in their rituals, in the stories murmured beside the flames. The cave paintings, lines rough but rich in meaning, were not only drawings of animals or signs of the hunt. Sometimes they showed a great watching eye, a perfect circle, a human standing beneath a beam of light. These images feel like messages left for someone unseen, as if they believed a presence was watching, waiting for their answer. Centuries passed. People began building structures whose grandeur surpassed survival needs. Pyramids, temples, stone towers pointing to the sky, these were not just places of worship. They were offerings, attempts to show that humanity was trying to understand its purpose. Each stone, lifted by rough hands without machines, carried a quiet belief. Someone, somewhere, might be watching. Sometimes we forget that our ancestors also looked up at the sky and wondered what we wonder now. They saw meteors and thought them messages. They heard thunder and believed it was a warning. They felt the wind shift and sensed a sign. They were not naive. They were simply decoding life's test in the only language they knew. And isn't it fascinating, with all our technology, cameras in our cities, probes on Mars, we have not outgrown these ancient questions. We are simply repeating them with new tools, while the question remains unchanged. as old as the first dawn. Are we being observed? And if we are, what is the meaning of this life? These ancient stories, campfires, tribal drums, cave drawings, sky-reaching temples, all point in the same direction. Humans have always sensed that life holds another layer of meaning beyond what the eyes can see. Perhaps they could not accept that existence was random. Perhaps they felt that, behind the wind, the mountains, the moon, there was a listening mind. And when we listen to their questions, the questions of those who lived long before us, we discover something soft but heavy with truth. We are not alone in our wondering. Tens of thousands of years have passed, languages changed, cities rose and fell. But the question of purpose still stands, like a mountain untouched by time. When we ask, we are joining a long river of thought, a river where every generation is a ripple reflecting the same ancient light seen by our earliest ancestors. And from this continuity, the next part waits for us. If all of human civilization is a meditation stretching across millennia, where are we now in our test? Now we begin to notice something familiar but often forgotten. Our ancestors didn't tell stories just to explain the world. They were recording the first breaths of humanity inside a long, unseen examination. And from deep in that ancient memory, a gentle motion spreads outward, like a thin breeze on a still lake. It brings us back to the present, to ourselves, the ones continuing the story they began. For if early humans always sensed another layer to existence, then our civilization, our cities, our knowledge, our struggles must also be part of the same unfolding question. And so, Part 9 opens like a long exhale, inviting us to view human history not as tangled timelines, but as a deep meditation where every movement carries purpose. Human civilization, in its own way, is a meditation, thousands of years long. From the first footprint pressed into mud, to the towers rising to touch clouds, to the metal ships leaving Earth behind, everything can be read as a series of levels, steps on a ladder of awareness, from innocence to understanding, from wildness to refinement. At the first level, the level of survival, humanity could only breathe in short, hurried bursts. Each day was a battle against cold, hunger, predators, the unpredictability of nature. At that level, the only question was, how do we live one more day? This was humanity's first breath, quick, rough, necessary. It is the foundation of everything. Then, when humans began to learn how to make fire, share food, build shelters, and grow crops, the second breath began, the level of cooperation. This was the moment we learned how to sync our breathing with one another, one person helping another, one tribe leaning on another. Small groups becoming villages, villages becoming cities. The test quietly shifted from how do we survive to how do we live together. This part of the journey is like slow meditation, where we listen to the heartbeat of the community and begin to understand that the beauty of existence does not lie in being alone. But humanity didn't stop there. Creativity burst forth like a deep breath, and along with it, paradoxically, came the power to destroy. This is the advanced level, where we learn to use the same intelligence to build homes or burn them down, to construct hospitals or design weapons, to send probes into space, or create things that could erase our own birthplace. At this level, the test becomes more refined. What will you do with the power you have? And just like a long-time meditator, the stronger you become, the more awareness you need. From there, civilization steps into the deepest level, learning not to lose itself in complexity. This is the phase that feels very much like that moment in meditation, when the mind becomes chaotic. Not because there is too little peace, but because too many things appear at once. Technology, knowledge, the speed of information. Everything crashes together like great waves. And the question is no longer what can we build, but who are we among all that we have built? This is the hardest test. one with no clear right or wrong, only the degree of honesty we can maintain with ourselves. Looking back, these stages feel like the long breaths of humanity. Breathing in, when we build, create, invent. Breathing out, when we collapse, end, and make room for something new. In this way, civilization moves forward not in a straight line, but in waves. Each wave is a civilization. Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Maya, Greece, ancient China. Each civilization is like one test inside a greater test. Every collapse is not a failure, but like a long exhale to prepare for the next breath in. And sometimes, standing in the chaos of the present, we think everything is going downhill. But if we look through the long breath of the universe, we'll see this is only a natural movement. Like a meditator who watches the mind become tangled before it settles back into stillness. Every war, every crisis, every upheaval is part of a refining process, not to punish us, but to help us realize what truly matters. Right now, as you listen, your eyes may feel a little heavier, you're breathing a little deeper, and you're touching a truth as light as smoke. Humanity does not evolve only through tools and technology. We evolve through consciousness, and that consciousness is asking a question that is very old, yet always new. Where are we in this great test? And once we sense the breathing of civilization, we naturally step into the next part. If each cycle is a lesson, then what is the true teacher behind all these trials? And when we begin to see human civilization as a long, unending meditation, with inhales of building and exhales of collapse, we start to sense something behind all that motion, something hard to name, like a quiet current that is always testing, always refining, always watching each breath of humanity without saying a word. When we realize that these rises and falls are not chaos, but a kind of soft lesson from the universe, our own hearts soften for a moment. Like someone who has just understood a secret they'd only half felt before. And in that very instant, a gentle but deep question starts to appear, weaving through our layers of thought. If civilizations have their own seasons, then what about each person? Each of us? Do we go through similar seasons too? And the answer, like a distant whisper from long ago, is yes. Not with lightning strikes or planet-wide cataclysm, but through the things closest to us. The hard seasons only we know about, only we feel, only we walk through. These seasons are not loud, not dazzling, but they are where the soul grows the most. They are the doorway that carries us naturally from part 9 into part 10, like water flowing from high to low, soft, but irreversible. Because when we look at humanity's long journey, we suddenly see that it mirrors the small journey of each individual. Civilization knows how to endure. We also know how to endure. Civilization falls and rises again, so do we. Civilization finds itself again after chaos. We do too. And so, part 10 opens not as a sad lesson, but as an honest look at something that has always lived beneath the thin mist of daily life: suffering. Those quiet, profound trials, like a teacher we never invited, yet who always arrives on time. In this journey, suffering is not drawn as a violent blow, but as images soft as memory. A rain that falls endlessly on a rooftop, so steady we no longer remember when it began. A small crack in dry earth, humble enough to be ignored but holding within it a long story about time. A shadow that follows us every evening, stretching across the ground, reminding us that there are parts of our soul we have never named. These images don't stab us, they quiet us. They point to something deeper than sadness, the unavoidability of challenge. Suffering in this story is like a strict but fair teacher. There are no report cards, no multiple choice questions, only timing. It often arrives in moments we least expect, like a guest knocking on the door before we have had the chance to tidy the room. But precisely because we are unprepared, we learn the most. No book records these lessons, but everyone understands them once they've walked through. This teacher measures things no scientific tool can record. It measures the resilience of the heart, how we shrink when we are hurt, and how we open when opportunity returns. It measures compassion, how we face our own pain, and from there, how we treat the pain of others, and most importantly, it measures the ability to rise again. Not in a forceful, instant way, but gently, slowly, truthfully, like fresh grass pushing through after a long winter. In the language of sleep and soothing, suffering is not a sentence, it is a support. It doesn't come to break us, but to wake up the parts of us we've neglected. It is like a hand resting on the shoulder, not to push us down, but to remind us that we can walk a little farther. And just like meditation, every time we think we've understood it completely, we discover there is another level beneath. Because in the end, pain is not just something that happens in life. It's the strange element that gives life shape. Without long rains, we would never know how warm a home can be. Without cracks in the earth, we'd never see the strength of plants daring to grow from the driest ground. Without the shadow behind us, we'd never be sure whether we're walking toward the light or away from it. And so, in the continuity of this journey, suffering doesn't drag the story down. It opens a new dimension. It brings us closer to ourselves. It completes what civilization has gone through and reflects what each human being is learning. Gently, slowly, without force, but in a way that nothing else can replace. And when we see suffering as a quiet teacher standing at the edge of our lives, we begin to see that each person's trials are not isolated paths, but small pieces of a much larger picture. Just as civilizations pass through cycles of birth and death, each person has their own seasons, times of opening and closing, of shining like sunrise and bowing like the deep night. When these movements are placed side by side, they form a bigger rhythm, the silent heartbeat of all life on Earth. From this vantage point, we start to notice something repeating, faint as an echo in a deep cave, dim as the last light of day, yet strong enough to make a mindful listener pause. Beneath the thin layer of pain, a familiar pattern appears, one we've seen countless times: endurance. The ability to begin again, the cycle of rebirth after ruin. These things repeat so often that people begin to wonder whether it is all just coincidence or whether there is an invisible hand patiently watching, patiently testing, patiently fine-tuning this world, like a test that never ends. And the moment we notice that repetition, that sense of great circles turning in the air, gently leads us into the final part, where we are lifted high enough to look down at Earth, as if it were a glass sphere writing its own story. From that height, Earth no longer appears as a familiar planet, but as a breathing being, changing, rewriting itself over and over again. We see ages of extinction and renewal woven together like ripples when someone drops a stone into a lake. Civilizations rise and fade, like candles lit to briefly brighten a room, before being allowed to dim so another flame can take their place. We see great events acting like reset buttons of the universe, moments where everything is renewed, gentle for nature, heavy for human beings. And within these spirals, we feel a steady fine-tuning by a hand that never shows itself, like a programmer adjusting parameters in a model we only ever see from the surface. No one says we are living in a simulation. No one can prove that a test has been pre-written. But these repeating patterns, layered over millions of years, create a feeling that's hard to ignore, a sense that a very large question is unfolding, slowly but surely. Why does everything move in such familiar circles? The cycles of birth and death, order and chaos, construction and collapse, all seem to whisper, perhaps everything we go through is not just random. Perhaps this is how the universe speaks to us, not with words, but with rhythm. The rhythm of events repeating too often to dismiss as coincidence. The rhythm of lessons returning until humanity finally learns what it needs to learn. The rhythm of a test with no clear exam paper, yet always waiting for answers in the way we live each day. And at the meeting point between science and intuition, between history and the quiet ache of each heart, we are left standing before one small thought that opens countless doors. Maybe we don't know what test we're taking, but the way we live is already our answer. This idea doesn't scare us. It slows our breathing. Because if life is a test, then no one is grading us in this moment. Everything is simply observing. If Earth is an examination room, then each of us is not a pressured examinee, but a traveler learning to understand themselves. If the universe is asking a question, that question is not meant to make us fail, but to invite us to look more deeply into our own nature. How we love, how we endure, how we rise, and what we bring into the world, light or shadow, whenever we pass through it. And when we look back over the entire journey, from the first questions to the great repeating cycles of the cosmos, we finally see that this test, if it truly exists, is not here to sort us out, but to illuminate us. Not to throw us away, but to lift us up. Not to frighten us, but to make us more delicate, more mindful, in every small choice we make. In the end, in the soft breath of the night, when everything quiets down, we are left with something very simple, very human, very true. The way we live is the most beautiful answer we can send into the universe. Sleep well.